Thank you both so much for being here, but more importantly for making this picture, which resonates in ways that we wish it wouldn't probably, but it certainly does. And it's an incredibly compelling picture at the same time. So congratulations to you both. Thanks again for being here. So I have to admit, this is a bit of a first for me. I've interviewed a few great cinematographers, maybe none quite as great as the one sitting on stage right now. And I've interviewed great actors, but I've never done them both at the same time. So I hope that you'll indulge me through this process. Yeah. Okay, good. So Roger, I was reading recently, happily, your words. It's great to have people engage with what you've been doing for a long time, especially around this picture. So I'm going to read a quote that I read of yours. You can tell me if it's incorrect. It's where you put the camera and what's in front of it that's important. So that was taken way out of a context.
Can't go wrong with that.
There you go. So I'm wondering if perhaps, since Emily was what was in front of you, you might talk a little bit about working with Emily. And I'm going to flip it around, and then I'm going to ask you how it was to have him put the camera where he did. Which was, anyway. So, but maybe, Roger, we could just start, because this was the first time you had worked together, is that correct?
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, what I was talking about, that quote actually was this sort of seeming obsession these days with discussing whether you shoot on film or digital.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, right, I'm sure we will, damn it, but...
No.
But it is, I feel part of my job is kind of to create a space, and the crew's job is to create a space that the actors can kind of work in and feel comfortable in, and feel secure in, and I think that's,
And on a picture like this, I would imagine that becomes of primary importance. I mean, there's a lot of emotional risk, certainly in a story like this, but also actual physical action. And you were actually an operator, I just noticed. I didn't realize that. Are you the operator?
I always operate. I started shooting documentaries, when I started in my career, and I've never got out of the habit of handling the camera. I won't let anybody else get to it.
So I think part of the context in which I read this article was talking about the tunnel shoot and the choices that you made about how to shoot that in a nighttime scenario and then going into the dark. And then that required a certain, probably a different experience for you in terms of vis-a-vis the camera and working and the instruction. So maybe what was that process?
We couldn't see the camera, so we couldn't see anything really at that time, because Roger, and quite rightly just said, I have concerns about that tunnel sequence because I don't want it to look fake, that they're sort of flooded with light in a situation that is just not real. And so I think you had like a tiny, tiny little pin, like way in the distance.
Yeah, I felt really sorry for you guys.
No, you didn't, because you got amazing shit and you were thrilled with it. But it was, so we were told, it's really going to be very dark, and I'm thinking, oh, well, it won't be like super dark, but it was very dark. And we were given night vision goggles in the scene that didn't work. They were like fake night vision goggles. They were props. So it really was just like stumbling around with an eye patch on, and it was amazing. No one killed themselves. But I just loved that about Roger and about Denis, that they had the guts to shoot a scene like that, that in a way, is in itself its own sort of art piece within the film. And
so was it choreographed? I mean, if you literally couldn't see.
I mean, it was, I don't think we rehearsed before we did it, but we shot it in pieces, it was very much a sectional sort of night. And I think Roger had a very clear idea of, the shots and everything you wanted.
Did.
You didn't?
Actually, no, that was one sequence we kind of made up as we went along, I've got to say. It wasn't something you could storyboard. I mean, Denny and I basically talked through the whole movie, and we figured the kind of shots we wanted. But again, back to the whole idea of the sequence. You read a script and it says, these 12 characters or something going into this tunnel in the middle of the night, and you think, well, how is the audience going to see that? So that was always my worry. And Denny said, well, let's play it completely in points of view. So we did it through these. He said, if we got two different, systems, like, so one was night vision, one was thermal image, then we can, he said, then we can recognize which character's viewpoint it was, And he said, I think that's the way to go, to create that kind of chaos. But it was
claustrophobia as well. It is a very claustrophobic film, and I think that scene especially captures that more than any of the others.
Well, that's I actually was going to be my follow-up, because other than the intense claustrophobia of that scene specifically, I guess I was trying to come up, how would I describe this film visually, but almost like arid, right? Like you're just struggling for breath, and I mean, it's a desert picture and all of that, but how in the world, did you breathe on a set like that was so arid, perhaps, but then how do you create that with light, other than just shooting dust onto the set, which it was obviously much more than that?
I mean, I've always said about Sicario that it had a very, very familial atmosphere on set. People were very happy, and I actually didn't quite realize the claustrophobia of the film until I saw it, and just how intensely that strikes you. Because it did feel relaxed on set, because I think I was working with people like Roger and Denis, who are just rather incomparable people to work with, and so you feel in very safe hands, and you are given it. Denis always had such an open ear to any idea, any thought, and he sort of defies the idea of an auteur-like director, because he's so delightful. He's just the sweetest thing, and yet he has this obsession with the dark side, and so it was a lovely atmosphere on set. It was very, it was an exciting shoot. There were scenes for sure that were harder, but...
Well, in a sense, you can tell, especially by what you just described, that it was a great collaboration. And I think, in a way, that's what we're talking about tonight, really. And I'm not sure if Denis would agree or disagree, but I actually think not being that grandiose auteur is a positive, because at the end of the day, this is a collaborative art form.
Well, it has to be a collaboration, otherwise you just miss out on everything. Everything. If people are straitjacketed by doing it a certain way and it's one person's point of view, then you're all in trouble. I think the best idea has to win. And speaking about Roger, for example, even though I'm sure a lot of what he and Denis had discussed, was thought about, and these are other dreamlike images that you have an idea of how the scene's going to go, but he would always sort of move and shake with whatever Benicio or Josh and I had an idea for. There was always room to breathe. Yeah. And that is so important, because you just have to throw a bunch of stuff against the wall to see what sticks sometimes.
So this is a character, yours is a character whose true north is destabilized, right? She gets disoriented, and so the trick is, how do you take a character on that journey, both as an actor and in setting up the shoot and in filming it, and not disorient your audience so much? I mean, and I really felt like in many cases the camera work was helping us understand just how disoriented she was. Was that anything you ever talked about, or am I making this all up?
I mean, it was very much when Denis and I talked about it. I mean, it was very much, obviously, the film. Kate is the audience, really. Kate's character takes the audience through this kind of nightmare. Yeah, I mean, so very much he's structured the way it's shot around with that in mind,
So, Roger, people use tons of superlatives when they talk about you and your work. Much deserved, most of them. But one that I've never heard is fetishist.
Actually, Frances McDormand said something in Cannes. They gave me some award in Cannes this last year, and Frances said I had a foot fetish, but I never realized I had that.
Well, that Fran may know better about that, but yeah.
It was very embarrassing at Cannes. I'd never been there before, and there's like a good friend.
That was. Leave it to Fran. Thank you. Well, I was going to say, rather than, because, and this is my way of addressing but not addressing the film versus digital thing, right? So you're a versatile perfectionist. You use the tools that you need to get the job done. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
And why, in this case, then, would you choose to use digital tools?
On this film?
On this picture.
Well, there's a lot of night shoots in it. I actually think using digital, I can communicate with the director better than if I'm using film. I know other DPs say, other cinematographers say, well, the mystery's gone because you can see the image on the set, and the producer can come up and say, I don't like that or whatever. I don't have that problem. I like to discuss with a director exactly what I'm doing. If a silhouette, if I want to shoot a silhouette, there's the silhouette on the monitor. I don't sit in dailies the next day and have the director say, yeah, it's a silhouette, I can't see their faces. And it's like, okay, well, what is your definition of a silhouette? So
And Emily, you also seem ready to abandon any effort to define you as this is an Emily Blunt role. You really do seem to embrace the opportunity to redefine yourself and the characters that you play at any given moment. Is that fair enough?
Yes, and very much the intention, and very much what I love about the job is the variety, and I don't want to discover my whole bag of tricks ever. I think I just have to be challenged because I've done a number of films now, and and since becoming a mother, it's like when I go to work, I want it to really count and really mean something to me, and stretch me in ways that I didn't sort of expect. And so it's very much the intention not to be pigeonholed, and so is really not to bore myself.
But there seems to be embedded that, alas, some risk in this industry. That, well, I'm not sure. I mean, so far you've nailed it every time. But at a certain point, I mean, I'm thinking of last...
I'm playing a raging alcoholic at the moment, so you shouldn't say that to me.
Somehow not a stretch, maybe? No.
Yeah.
No, but last year this time, you were talking about singing on screen.
Right. Well, I guess that's the risk, and that's what I like about it.
Keeps you turned on.
Yeah.
So then the next is about collaboration, kind of ongoing or regular collaboration, which may or may not lead to a certain kind of understanding with your collaborators, and then the collaboration with the unknown. So Roger, we'll start with you. Your tremendous collaboration with the Coens, with Mendes, with Denis. I have to admit, if I had to pick a favorite of yours, it would be The Assassination of Jesse James, which was with a director that you had not worked with before, and I don't know that you've worked with him since, but you were able to find something truly magical, I felt, in that picture. So maybe just talk a little bit about the benefits of working with familiar collaborators and the benefits of working with unknown collaborators.
In a way, it wasn't that much different working with Andrew Dominic, who did Jesse James. Wasn't that different working with him than working with Danny or the Coen brothers. I mean,
there's no code that you develop with
yeah, well,
people?
there is, but I mean, I just think in terms of the passion. I mean, what links those people is the passion they have for the cinema, and they might approach it in a different way, but to me, that's always the key. Yeah, I mean, with Joel and Ethan, we've definitely developed a kind of sign language, but they were always quite quiet. It always disturbed me on Barton Fink, which was the first one I did with them. It always disturbed me how quiet they were, but they haven't really changed. They're still quite quiet. I still don't understand them, but we get on very well.
So Hail Caesar was a mute set, basically?
It is. People come to our sets and they say, was everybody unhappy or something? It's so quiet, But actually, they said that somebody came actually, when I did Skyfall with Stan Mendes, they used to say that same thing about that set. And I like a really quiet set. I mean, I really like people concentrating. And some of the people I've worked with a lot, the crew is so important. I work with the same people over and over again.
This is the quietest audience we've ever had.
And it's like working with family and sort of working with Joel and Ethan and most of the people they have from film to film are the same people. So it's really like, being an extended family, and everybody is there. Everybody is there for the same reason, which is the end product. They're not there just for the money and have a good time. Hopefully, people get that, but they're there to make the best product possible, and that's what was so wonderful about the business when it works.
And Emily, you've been so adventurous. I was actually trying to find people that you have collaborated on a regular basis, and actually one of them was Benicio. Anybody can tell us what the other film she was in with Benicio?
Nobody.
There you go,
Wow.
Wolfman. All right.
Just the one, though, that saw it, right? It's okay. It's okay. We did The Wolfman together 8 years ago. Guys, it's an amazing movie. I don't know why you love it. And I loved working with him then. He's a completely singular person. There's nobody I know like Benicio, and he's mistaken for being aloof a lot of the time, and he's just the sweetest, shyest person, and he's very funny, and he and I got along really well, and I torment him and torture him, and he seems to like it, and we have a good time when we work together. And so yeah, he chased me down in The Wolfman, and he did it again in this, but with less drool and teeth.
But still
It's just
super
as
scary.
frightening, yeah, just as frightening.
Could you imagine developing an ongoing relationship with any of the directors you worked so far? Or the
Denis,
writers?
very much. I would love to. I just can't say enough nice things about him, and I loved working with Ryan Johnson on Looper. I think he's astonishing. He's now doing Star Wars at the moment.
Is it fully cast?
I think it is. Yeah, I think Benicio's doing it.
No way.
Yeah, and I loved Doug Liman, who did Edge of Tomorrow, and Doug is completely out of his mind, but again, just kind of brilliant. I loved him.
Are there any locations that you've shot in that you would just love to shoot in again? This is a leading question because you shot, I think, the Adjustment Bureau here at MoMA for about 5 seconds, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Did. MoMA, obviously. Oh my goodness. I loved shooting in New Orleans because of the food. It was so much fun there. Yeah, we had a good time there.
That's great. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Let's go in the back first. A change. Yes, you, sir. Yep.
I wanted to ask Roger and Emily.
Thank you.
Roger, I noticed a lot of reflective shots and dark shadows and a lot of foggy mirrors. I wanted to ask you where you came up with your inspiration for these kind of divisions from an individual shots. And Emily, I wanted to ask you how it felt to act with that kind of idea in mind of what you look like in film.
Start with Roger. I think it's slightly easier.
It's those things just come from discussions. Denny and I would just discuss the shots, like in pre-production and then on the set, and those things would just evolve. I don't know. They come from the dark side. I don't know.
And was anything that specific actually discussed when you were shooting, or?
Honestly, I don't pay much attention to how it's looking, particularly on me necessarily. I mean, I think you get an idea the more you do this job, and the longer I've been on film sets, you get an idea of how it's going to look. But I don't watch playback, and I don't like to do that. But I also feel that I was being shot by Roger Deakins, so I was very happy. I'm sure whatever he decided
it's going to
to
be
do
dark
would
in
be.
silhouette. Yeah.
I would be shot in silhouette for the whole movie.
And there's a pretty
You
good
didn't
chance
wanna
you'll end
think
up
of
dead. But, yes, I'm just scanning, making sure we're covering everybody. Yes, right in the middle there, sir. Yes, yay.
Hi, thanks you both for coming. I'm a professor at Hunter College, just around the corner from here, and I'm here with my cinematography students. And this is kind of our final exam, you could say. I really appreciate you both being able to share your experiences with us.
Thank you.
My question's for Roger. So cinematography is kind of a lifelong craft, right? And on every picture you learn a little bit more.
I don't know if I could say anything specific, but you do learn. I think. I don't know. I think for me, it's also about getting confidence. The more I do, the probably a little bit more confident I get every time. I don't know what specifically you learn. I hadn't shot with a thermal image camera before, but I mean, that's nothing. I mean, it's technique you can sort of find. It's just every experience adds to your whole sort of stockpile, really, doesn't it? I think.
So in the way of compliments, a year ago, almost exactly, I was sitting on stage with the cast of Unbroken and its director, and Angelina Jolie said that she basically owed her movie to you. So there you go.
Well, everybody's very sweet on that. It's really nice. I don't really think so.
Yes, Miss, please.
First of all, congratulations to both of you for making a very fine film about a terrible subject. I was wondering, there seemed to be a lot of photography of the geography of the place and the grimness of it and the sameness, the relentless sameness and lack of color. So is this something that you as a cinematographer discussed with the director before, or it kind of evolved out of the film making itself?
Well, in pre-production, you discuss these things, and what we do is Patrice, the production designer, would make what you call a mood board, and you do this on most films I've experienced. You basically put up images that stand in for every scene in the film, and so then you get a kind of good idea of the color flow of the film before you start shooting. So in that sense, it's kind of deliberate, I guess.
And Emily, did you make the equivalent, I guess, of a mood board in your research? Like, did you meet with FBI agents? Did you meet with people on the ground, men or women or both?
I did, and I met with 4 women. I met with 2 and spoke to another 2 on the phone. And that informed nearly everything I chose to do with the part, particularly one woman who I zeroed in on, and she had this very interesting way about her. She was incredibly steely and tough, but actually quite restrained and shy. And I loved that combination of somebody who throws themselves into the face of real danger every day, and that sort of definition of who you are by what you do, because socially she was so awkward, and I just loved that about her, and so I definitely based the character mainly on her. And then when I got to Albuquerque, Daniel Kaluuya, who plays my partner, he and I trained with local FBI, DEA, SWAT teams, and we had real Delta Force guys. We had the stunt coordinator was a Navy SEAL, wasn't he? Was he a SEAL for 30 years, and so we had the kind of expertise that was sort of essential to making it feel authentic. And the thing that's been a relief to me is I've heard from agents since who've seen it who just said that really is, very authentic, particularly people who work in this part of the world.
And do any of them confront you and say, I never would have signed, I never would have given in? I know, tough. MoMA, come on, it's going to be tough.
No, I have not had that conversation. I doubt many of them have been in her position. I spoke to all the FBI girls and I said, if any of you work with the CIA? And they said, no, we haven't. But one of them said, I know a friend who did. And she said it was an absolute nightmare. So it sort of gave me an idea of what Kate was in for.
Let's take one last. All right, you've been very patient.
Your accent, American accent, was great. Thank you. Could you talk about, was that for this film? Did you have that before?
I had done an American accent before, but I hadn't done it for a little bit, and so I worked with a dialect coach who I love working with, Liz Himmelstein, and she wasn't actually able to be on set, but we'd Skype, before the scenes. But it helps that I'm married to an American, and I live in America, and I'm sort of surrounded by the sound all the time, that even now when I speak to my mother, she goes, oh, you're sounding very mid-Atlantic. Because she hears me, slipping.
Like literally in the middle of the Atlantic?
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for sharing your time for the holidays. Congratulations.